if you want to run, go join a run club. If you keep hanging out with the people who you don't want to be like, it's going to be so hard. There's always been people who are sharing shit information that people shouldn't be hearing, but they have the biggest audiences. You can just focus on what you're doing because that's all you can control. Not prepping properly, not sleeping well, all those little things, they all add up. But you can't measure it. You can't say we lost the game because that guy
didn't do two push-ups.
Oh, we've hit a massive wall. 90Ks deep.
There's got to be something different. Like there's got to be something sort of like it's almost spiritual. You know what I mean? Like when you start getting into the realm of spirituality when you start thinking about running for 100 kilometers.
100%.
You know?
I think that's it, right? Like you aren't doing it for performance. You aren't trying to hit a PB. You aren't trying to win the race. At least I'm not. I'm so far off it. But it's different to a marathon in that with a marathon you are trying to run your best time and you are trying to, I think, do the race. Whereas the way that I see it is the ultra is more about the journey. Even the 100K races, they were awesome, but I didn't hit that point. I didn't hit that point. I want to find that point.
That point where it's like you transcend life and feel like you found God.
Everything. Yeah, you find the light. Yeah. They were hard and they were pretty fucked and I was sore, but I didn't hit that wall. I didn't hit the wall where I was like, I can't do this. There was not one point in those races where I went, I'm not finishing this race. And when you watch docos or you hear stories about the 100-mile races, 200-mile races, 240-mile races, they all hit that wall, even like twice during the race or 3 times. And I think I want to find that and then maybe stay in it for a bit and do a few more races like that. But I don't think it's a long-term thing. I don't think it's, a 20-year ultra, running career, if that makes sense.
Sure.
It's probably experience it, do it a few times, feel it, and then come out of it.
And I think that gives me hope for your sanity.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Like I was, because the more I think about it, I guess for me, I sort of thought, well, conquering that much of yourself seems like pretty awesome and seems like enough, but there still seems to be something extra you're searching for almost, or something, I guess it's a search of some sort. And I think that's what interests me about ultras is not so much the physical achievement, is more like the why, you know. And I know that's a cliche for athletes to say, what's your why, but truly, like, I just go, why the fuck are you doing it? Like, why are you doing this to yourself,
Yeah. I probably won't know until I do it, I guess, if that makes sense. You won't know until you've hit that point. So I'm still looking for the why. And again, like someone asked me, they were like, do you think if you couldn't share all of your running and you couldn't share all your Strava posts and you couldn't show people that you're doing this, would you still want to be doing it? So if I went off grid and did these races, would I still want to be doing it? And I couldn't answer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like there's obviously that contribution, of course. Like you want to do things that shine a positive light in other people's eyes, correct? Like you want to be seen positively in society.
It's always, it's that fine line. We were talking about it just before, like what's the balance, we're talking about balance, right? So, and when I do social media, it's the same thing. What part of this wants me to do it to show other people that's like, fuck you, I didn't turn out like you thought I was, I made it, I'm better than you, and and what part of me's got that narcissistic quality to it, and what part of it's actually because I want to genuinely encourage and inspire and help. And the more I look at everything I put on social media, I mean, it's hard to actually rationalize a lot of it, that it isn't a statement of, and that doesn't mean I don't do it. It's just that I put a photo of me and my happy whatever. Am I really? Does someone look at this and go, oh, Sean's so happy right now, that makes me want to get out of bed and be happy or go do something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What is it? What is the meaning behind it?
I don't know. But I mean, I still do it, and I still, and then I like criticize other people's posts. Like, look at this fuckhead, like, So I think there's that balance, and part of me wrestles with that all the time, because even doing this podcast, like, you know, I think part of the reason why I want to get into this medium is because I feel like it is closer to what I'm trying to do, which is have a conversation that's not short, that's not, you know, that is nuanced, and be able to actually maybe have people get something out of it. Or so that's a great question. Who asked you that question? That one about the
one of my coworkers.
It's an awesome question.
Yeah.
It's actually so succinctly put. Would you do it? You know, because
Great question.
Because yeah, I mean, sharing the achievement. I mean, how, you know, like, that's the whole reason they give out trophies, right? It's like so you can actually have something, some sort of recognition of what you've achieved over others.
Yeah.
You know,
or a Medal of Honor in the military, for example.
Exactly. And you hang it on your wall, you know, it's the same as posting it on socials, you know, because you're proud of it. So it's a balancing act, isn't it? Like, that's a good question.
I think it helps you train harder.
Absolutely.
100%.
Well, I was running this morning. I wasn't doing 1,004 kilometers like you did, but I just did my 5K park run this morning. And how much does the technology, do you go towards it, or do you try to strip it back? Do you like to listen to music? What do you do what helps you run?
I think tech definitely helps, like having your watch there and knowing that you can check your heart rate, your pace, you can check how far you've run. You've got all the metrics there. And then post-run as well, there's not one runner, I don't think, who has Strava that doesn't upload their Strava post after and check their heart rate and check their, you know, calories burned.
Yeah.
It's just cool knowing.
It is.
So I think you got to lean into it, but not get obsessed with it. With music though, no music. I don't run with any music.
No power songs?
No power songs. No. Just head noise.
So what do you think about? What is it like that? Like, do you get into that dream state where you just start thinking of, like, your mind just goes absent and 3 or 4 kilometers have ticked over?
Not really. Even with Kosciuszko, for example, which was 107 Ks, I didn't have any music there at all. So obviously I ran probably maybe 50 Ks with people, 50 without. So, you know, during the running with people, you are chatting and talking and, you know, sharing experiences. But the other 50, I don't know, like you aren't empty of thoughts, of course, but you also aren't, like, your mind's not racing. Thoughts come in, you might think about them, they pass through, you wait a little bit, a new thought comes in, and you just roll through like that, which I love, because that's what life is, right? Like, you can't always have this constant stream of entertainment. If you always have to be stimulated, then what state are you going to be in the whole time? This like fight or flight state. You get in the car and you pump your music. You get to the gym, you pump your music. You know, go into work, you have to pump, like, you know, binaural beats to get focused. It's like, why can't you just be with your thoughts and work without having to have something stimulating you or adding to, you know, what you're doing?
Well, and it also, I think it's the source of creativity. Like, if you're not bored, I tell my kids this, like, if you don't take the time to get bored, you won't be able to ever think of something, you know, because to have a thought of your own, you need to have to be able to create something, you need a space to create it in. And if you don't have that headspace.
Where's the space?
Yeah, and I think that being alone with your thoughts, I mean, that's something as well that's just not practiced. No. You know, it's not like, how long does it take to do, for the people listening, how long does it take to do an ultra marathon, 100 kilometers?
If it's like a flat one, say you're just running along the Gold Coast, you know, waterfront, maybe 10 hours, 11 hours if you're decently quick. But with a trail marathon, obviously you're going up and down, you're stopping, you're having food. I did mine in 16 hours 40. But the time will range from 11 hours would be like your best runners for the 105K, and then your slowest will be like 28 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a long time.
And that's respect to those guys that take 28 hours, man. Yeah. Honestly.
They're crawling a lot of the time.
Yeah, because they're people that haven't prepared well enough, or they've had an injury.
Or they're just older as well.
Or,
there's some 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds in there.
Yeah, true. Yeah, well, I guess they're just not letting the conditions stop them, whatever it be. Yeah. You know, and my dad used to run marathons, and he'd always say that, you know, the real heroes are the guys that take to 7 hours to finish it. Yeah, you know, the guys that do it in 2.5, 3 hours. It's amazing and impressive, but the gruel and the grind happens at the back of the field,
100% it does.
But mate, look, either way, I guess what I was getting to is that 16 hours, 15 hours of just doing something, one thing for that long.
Non-stop.
It's just unbelievable. And obviously you didn't just wake up one day and have that ability. So you've had to practice. And is there a part of you that looks back at Nick when he was younger, I'm not sure what age you would have been, where you thought there's no way that kid would have thought he could do that?
For sure. Even me at 19 years old or 21 years old, I had nothing going for me at 21, like nothing. Where was I at 21? I was working in a cafe. I was weak, unfit, soft, not fat, but just not strong. I had no career aspirations or no career. I was emotionally immature. I wasn't training hard. I had no events to train for. Pretty much nothing going on for me. And that guy there couldn't have even imagined running an ultra. And again, I'm not sitting here being
what could he have run? Was he running at all? Was he a fitness person at all?
Nah, he might run like a 5K or a 7K, but a 7K run was long back then.
Yeah.
So it's been a big shift from 21 or 20 years old. And also on top of that as well, drinking every weekend, which you have to go through that phase, but it's a different universe to what I'm in now, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And again, I'm not sitting here being like, I'm the best for running ultra marathon. There's a lot of people who do it and a lot of 50, 60-year-olds who do it. But definitely my life's worlds apart from where I was at 21. So no, he couldn't have imagined. No chance.
Yeah.
No chance. He would have said, oh, that's fucking dumb.
So what have you met with, I guess, have you had that experience? Have you met with sort of people who maybe not overtly, but maybe covertly have tried to derail you? Or has there been things that has there been any friendships threatened by you trying to take a different path? Has the relationships changed?
Probably not the answer you want to hear, but not really. I think if you think that's the case and you look for those situations, they'll find you.
Yeah.
As in, if you think, oh, I'm going to start doing my own thing, I'm going to, get to these heights here, and she's going to have an issue, and she'll have an issue, and my mum will have an issue, then they're probably going to,
have issues.
They have issues, right? But I think I'm fairly easygoing and fairly lighthearted, and I've definitely pushed away from people who aren't.
And just to cut back to that, so it wasn't an answer I was looking for. It was more just I imagine that if you're a kid that's drinking, partying, not really interested in health, that circle, and maybe that's even the reason you decide, that's why you pushed into health, maybe because you found more people and found more life and found more joy in this direction and went that way.
Yeah.
Rather than leaving behind. Maybe there wasn't a whole lot of joy there in the first place. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. And again, if you find the right people and you find the environments, then it makes it so much easier. Like, if you want to run, go join a run club or go to park run every weekend. Start hanging with people who run regularly. That's an easy way to do it. I think if you keep hanging out with the people who you don't want to be like, it's going to be so hard, and you always have pushback. Why aren't you drinking? Nah, come on, just have one. Come out. My mates were never like that. As in, we all drunk. We all went out and had, big nights and whatnot, but we all grew up eventually. We hit 22, 23, and we, it went from once a week of drinking to once a fortnight to once a month to, once every 3 months, for example. So that made it a lot easier. But for the people who do find the pushback, oh, why are you running so much? You don't need to run that far. Or, well, why aren't you drinking? Come on, we're in Noosa. Let's just have a few wines. You just got to steer away from those people. I think that's the easiest way to do it. Because if you're getting sick of it, why would you stay in that environment? If you're getting punched in the face repeatedly, do you just stay in the fight or do you just walk away?
Yeah.
Just get out of it. That's what I found. And again, I don't think I've had much pushback. I've had a few people, make those snide remarks, as you know, and they're like, oh, why are you running so far? That's so dumb. Like, it's so bad for your body. And then this is like a 40-year-old woman who's like morbidly obese. She's it's so bad for your body.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to, but it's like, is it bad for my body? I feel pretty good. I'm pain free. I feel healthy, feel fit. My knees feel good. Shins feel good.
Well, I go do the park run, right? That's sort of something that I think for me, I know your standard's probably a lot higher, but I was thinking, I've always sort of personally thought that a man or a woman actually, a base fitness of everyone is to just be able to drop of a hat, any shoes you're wearing, any clothes you're wearing, be able to run 10K.
Yeah.
Like almost like as an emergency, like safety,
Yeah. Get away from the line.
Whatever, exactly. Something's happened, you need to run in an hour, right? You need to be able to move 10 kilometers in an hour in any, that's kind of what I just like to keep at, right?
Yeah, like a little mental
because I'm not a fitness,
model.
I'm not someone who's heavily into fitness, and I'm not someone who gets that sort of pleasure out of it. And I know some people who are very intellectual, for example, they just don't get joy out of the physicality of fitness. How frustrating is it for you, or how do you deal with, maybe is a better way to put it, I guess, things like you just mentioned, where people who have very little understanding of health, for starters, the ignorance around it, but also then the bad advice around it.
Yeah. It's hard, but you have to be non-judgmental. You have to try and not judge them, because their actions and their beliefs are based around their experiences. So you can't really change that. But I think trying not to take it to heart is probably a good starting point, because they're harmless. Someone's saying, oh, you shouldn't be running that far. It's like you just go, oh, yep, okay, that's your opinion, cool,
Yeah.
That'd be my opinion. Don't take it to heart firstly. It can get frustrating on social media, obviously, because you've got so many charlatans, so many influencers with 400,000, 500,000, a million followers who are sharing shit information. But that's just what it is. There's always been charlatans. Throughout all of history, there's always been people who are sharing shit information that people shouldn't be hearing, but they have the biggest audiences. So you can just focus on what you're doing, which is the main thing, because that's all you can control.
Yeah, well, the biggest in everything generally isn't the best, hey? I was thinking about that the other day. I mean, probably I haven't thought about it too deeply, and someone will probably prove me wrong, but I was thinking the biggest selling foods and drinks, definitely not the best for you. The best selling music is probably the shittest.
Yeah.
The best selling movies.
Or that's going to offend some people. Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, I mean, look, even Taylor Swift, it's just so huge.
Yeah, massive.
It's just so huge. And I think there'd be musicians out there that would just, this is not an indictment on Taylor Swift, but there would be musicians there that would just consider it offensive. Just like there's movie makers and people who are into cinema that would go and watch the latest Marvel movie or the latest whatever and just think, this is just not what it is about.
Yeah.
The art form, right?
It's not Spielberg.
Yeah. So when you look at, and as I was saying, and I've said before, is like this idea of narrow is the path, which I mentioned earlier to you before when we were off camera, that I think that there's always been charlatans. There's always been the snake oil salesman. There's always been the temptations outside. But I just feel that maybe as we're getting further and further down the line, I mean, that path is just getting narrower. As I mentioned, having kids, the things that they're exposed to, we didn't have to make those decisions. My kids shouldn't have to make decisions about things that I didn't have to. They shouldn't have to make decisions about whether they want to do drugs or not do drugs. I mean, when I was 14 years old, I mean, if I didn't even know what they were. If I wanted to, I saw it in movies or something, but even if I wanted to, I wouldn't know where the hell to get it, where to access it. If I wanted to do anything shifty, it wasn't just at my fingertips. Yeah. So this path is kind of getting narrower and narrower. And the other thing that's happening is, when you're trying to push forth on something, be it whether it even just be living a clean and healthy life. I think once you identify and see that path, once you actually can see it, and I think there would have been some point where maybe, when you were 21, how old are you now?
26.
26. So you're still, early into it really. But, I think there's an element of sort of joy or relief that arrives when you go, oh, I can actually just go that way and I won't have all these problems that everyone else has.
Yeah.
It's
a lot easier.
Yeah. It's a narrow path, but it's an easy path. It's flat.
Yeah.
It
takes away the choices.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess it's, it's defined and it's pretty simple,
Yeah.
I think that's the simplicity, and even the activity you're doing with running is a simple activity.
Very simple.
Yeah.
And also it takes away the amount of hours you have free in the week. Because you have to consider that, say you're doing 20 hours a week of running, that's 20 hours where you aren't drinking or you aren't, sleeping in or you aren't being lazy or you aren't procrastinating. Then you have to obviously sleep well, otherwise your body will break down. You have to wake up at a decent hour, so wake up quite early. You've got to, do strength training, do mobility, do all of that. There's so many additions that come into your life that you have to take things out. So, for example, if you're running, say, my longest run on a Sunday was like a 52K run, I'm not going out drinking Saturday night. There's no choice there.
Yeah.
You just can't do that. You can't go out and get pissed on Saturday night and then run 50K Sunday morning. It's not possible.
Well, yeah, it'd be very
it'd be very hard. Yeah.
So how I wanted to talk to you about your family, and we talked about it when we knew we were going to talk about this. I wanted to talk to you about just, I guess, family and how they, whether they inspired this, whether they've been supportive through it, whether it's been something that, I don't know. I guess part of me, still going back to what we said earlier, wonders when someone decides to take on such an extreme thing, whether there is some sort of, deeper reason, is there, what are your thoughts around your upbringing and your growing up and your family life and all that? And is that contributed to some way to this hyper focused sort of activity, I guess, that you're into now?
It's a good question. I think definitely when I was growing up and, going into that age of 21 where I was, not where I wanted to be per se, you look for ways to compensate. So you aren't, you have no career, you have no nothing going for you physically really. You aren't necessarily happy because you aren't doing much with your life. So you compensate by looking for ways to get attention, which I think was a common theme probably from year 10 onwards through to maybe 21, looking for attention in ways that weren't favourable. So, for example, being the funny drunk guy at the party, or trying to drink the most, or trying to, be a fuckboy and trying to, just do those things that aren't actually a sign of good character, but they make people look at you and have a little laugh and you go, oh, bang, it's like a little dopamine hit, little hits of dopamine. So that was what my character was based off. It wasn't based off me, studying really hard.
Any results? Cheap attention.
Yeah, well, actually in high school, to be fair, a little bit of it was, getting good grades was, it got me a bit of attention. And then mum and dad were obviously proud, and you use that as your kind of motivation to keep pushing forwards. But then university years, I was a bit of a fuckwit, to be honest. I was a fuckwit, first year, second year, and I might still be, I don't know, you make that judgment, but first year, second year, third year uni, I was emotionally immature. I was just, getting drunk every weekend. I had nothing going for me. I had no control of my emotions, so I get angry really easily. And I think,
is some of that born out of the frustration of, with university, I can find it can be quite stifling to, being a student, for example. What were you actually making in the world at that point?
Nothing.
Yeah,
nothing at all. And
it's just there's no output.
Nah.
Do you know what I mean? I find you go from school with this idea of, you've got a product. Your product is your grades. Your product is, and you've got to push for this product, which is some form of production.
Yeah.
It's the exchange, it's like, okay, I'm working to build this result.
Yeah, which is the ATAR or the OP.
Yeah, and then with the university, I mean.
Very transient though, the ATAR and the OP.
Oh, definitely. And it's like, it's something that, but it's still a product.
Yeah.
And I find that production is something that we just instantly stop, like, so when you go to university, there's almost like, I'd love to know some info or some research on this, but, and I think we'll delve deeper into this in future podcasts, but like that lack of production. And I think, depending on what your load is, whether it's 12 hours a week or 10 hours a week or 15 hours a week, and no real accountability, and also the influx of just this environment where it's very social and, and meanwhile you're racking up a debt, at the same time most people are. And I think that can really cause people to spiral, and it can also waste a lot of valuable years in your life because
Massively.
you're racking up debt, you're studying something that some people might not even, obviously you ended up getting your degree and using it.
Yeah.
You're one of the rare ones,
But
I'd
a lot
say.
don't.
Yeah.
So many.
And so, and you're putting yourself back years when those are the years where if you were working and earning 60 grand a year, let's say, whilst living at home, you can actually play the game of life a bit more.
Yeah.
And maybe the whole, buying a house, and picket fence type dream is more real.
Yeah.
So that would have led you to these types of people, and I guess you would have met some sort of contacts out of that, or did you do placement or something through that?
Yeah, so the way I describe it is first year was useless, absolute waste of time on my end because, first semester I failed one subject out of 4. Second semester, I withdrew from 2, so just completely carked it. And the other 2, I got a GPA of 1 in both.
Right.
Which is like the lowest number you can get.
Yeah,
you can't
yeah.
get any lower.
Yeah.
It is harder to get a GPA 1 than it is to get a GPA 4 because you
Yeah.
have to try so little.
Yeah.
I just didn't show up to some of the exams.
Wow.
There'd been an exam like our podcast today,
Yeah.
and it just wouldn't
didn't
show up.
Yeah.
Just didn't show up. I had no interest because I turned 18 mid-year, and the second semester was just a write-off entirely. Then second year, similar, a bit better, but I floated, failed a couple of subjects. And then from there, I was like, well, fuck, I have to make a choice now. I either commit a little bit or commit fully or just don't do it at all. So then I started committing, and from there, I got back on that path, as you said, that narrow path. And that's where I started seeing the results. And that's with most things, right? If you don't start by doing a 5K run, then you can't then build to a 10K run and then build to a 21K run. So I had to just start by committing to it. Third year was better. Fourth year, I started doing some placement opportunities. So going to gyms, going to clinics, started working in the field. Then I started at Norse, which was a big turning point for me, at Norse Devils. So for people who don't know, that's a rugby league club. They are the NRL reserve grade side, and at the time they were the feeder to the Broncos. So if you're, Sean Santoro, Broncos player, but you aren't playing very well, or maybe you're fairly new, you might go back and play for the Norse Devils in that reserve grade comp. So I started working there as an intern, sweeping the floors, coaching, doing those shitty jobs. And then you just start taking on more responsibility. And then as you said, you have a product now. The head of performance comes to me one day and he goes, mate, I want you to start running pre-training mobility workouts for the boys. And I'm like, fuck, right, I got to design this product. And then I had to run the boys through some stretching. Nothing crazy, nothing world-changing, but I'm actually having an impact now, and what I've learnt in uni, I'm starting to apply a little bit. And that then transferred into me, running full gym sessions. And then I got the under 18s job, then got the head of rehab job, then did that for a year, had a really good season. We won the premiership, then got the head of performance job and started, working as the head guy who was my boss the previous years. And then from there went to Redcliffe and so on. But it was all about just getting on the path in the first place and then putting myself in the right environment and progressively shifting my responsibility up and up in the same way that you might start with a 1K run and then, as I said, 5K, 10K.
Well, the opportunity for, this is the thing as well. I think it's when you're on that path, when you're actually doing the right thing and when you're looking for the opportunities, you will find them.
Sure.
And when you're on that path and you've actually got the distraction-free environment, you're going to then be able to say, okay, I'm steering this ship. what actually, where do I want to take it? You know, you've got that calmness, you're not pissed, you're not hungover, you're living well. And also people will see that in you as well. They'll say, this guy's responsible. This guy is actually someone we can trust. This guy's actually someone we can give something to and it will get done.
Yeah.
And then the opportunities start falling out of the sky and you start seeing these things, you know. With regards to when you were in your uni days, like what was, back to the family point, what was your family doing at that point? How does it, I can only think as a father, like when I had to see your son fucking around and being a dickhead, was there any tough conversations or was it they let you do it? They sort of let you sort of find your way?
I think they let me find my way pretty well. Dad was always, and he still is, a very social guy. So good businessman, works hard, has always been hardworking, very Italian, but also, you know, would get around, you know, going out with the boys and drinking. So, or just, you know, being social. So in that sense there, he never saw that as a bad thing.
Right.
I think he even
wanted you to go through it.
I think he wanted me to go through it and do it more. Because what I found was when I started going out less, so say in that first transition out of being 21 towards where I am now, you know, again, as I said, I went from drinking every weekend to every fortnight, every month. At that time, I was still living at home at 21. And he was like, you know, you should be going out more with the boys. You should be, you know, you should be, you know, catching up with the boys more. And I just wanted to at that time work and train and get better. Mm-hmm. And I was still social to an extent, but I wasn't going out heaps. And he almost saw that as a negative thing.
Sure.
But he was never saying like, you know, go get, you know, ridiculously drunk and pass out in the gutter.
I don't think it's more about the social aspect. He doesn't want, I mean, at that point, you're just worried that your kid is going to be meeting girls and, you know, and finding their way and just be happy, to be honest.
For sure.
Because the scariest thing for a parent, I think, is an unhappy kid.
Or a lonely kid.
Or someone who locks themselves in the bedroom and, you know, doesn't socialise.
And he's a very social guy, very extroverted. He has a lot of friends. And so he wanted that for me. But I think I wanted those people in my life to be the people that I have now in this positive environment rather than people that I had back then. You know, I had a group of mates when I was freshly 18 and they were awesome dudes. They were churchy boys. Met them on a night out once and we hung out, you know, almost every weekend. You'd see them out and go, oh, how you going, brother? I had a good mate. You know, we get pissed and we'd have a good night and go back to his place and smoke a J and, you know, whatever else. And, we, you know, went drunk driving once, don't tell anyone.
You just did.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. And then what I found was he's still, you know, obviously if I see him, we'll have a drink or have a coffee. But once I stopped going out, I never saw those guys again.
Yeah, yeah.
And you might see him if you go out, you know, once a year or whatever, but you just don't see those people.
Well, they might be on their own path as well.
Yeah, for sure.
You might see them on the track.
For sure. And again, it's like, you know, people come into your life for, what is it, a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Right.
And
never heard that. Yeah.
that was for a season. That was my season of getting drunk every weekend and, you know, partying and enjoying myself. And I think my dad saw that as a positive thing, which it was at the time. Yeah. But it can't hang around long term.
Nah.
That's not sustainable.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this thing. I think that in this day and age, like this prolonged adolescence, you know, like we've got a lot of men, I find anyway, like, you know, they're 30, 35 years old and I don't know whether maybe it's just, I'm not sure if, you know, I don't know if I should be judging it. I don't want it to sound judgy, but like to me, it seems ridiculous. Now, maybe I'm just an old fashioned guy and I'm 46 next week. So I look at it and I think, well, I don't think there's anything wrong with being fun and being an older guy and being fun. And I love, you know, keeping playfulness in your life, keeping cool music, keeping cool cars, keeping cool, you know, still being cool. I think I love that.
Yeah.
But I think when we lose responsibility, you know, when people don't actually, I think the key is responsibility. And I think a lot of these younger guys, they just have this prolonged adolescence, and adolescence is a time to me where you get to be free and irresponsible and do, you know, take a few, you know, take a few steps more than you should, you know, and push the limits a bit, because it is a time in your life where, you know, that's I think just naturally that's what you're going through at that point in your life. But I think we live in a society that prolongs that, you know, and I find there's a lot of people that are just pushing that. And, you know, if you talk to them, they'll all have reasons why, you know, and it really comes down to a confront. You know, I think it comes down to a confront where you've got to actually stop and say, okay, what am I actually doing for this planet? What am I actually doing for this world? What am I doing for future generations? What responsibility do I actually have?
Yeah.
And grow the fuck up,
100%.
really, you know? And I think one of the least attractive traits I find in grown males is that prolonged adolescence, that
or
prolonged
females too.
Well, yeah, I guess, we're specifically talking about dudes, but yeah, I think it's just the idea of this forever young. It's just bullshit.
Yeah.
The world doesn't need forever young.
You can still be fun, but pivot.
Yeah. But it's not about, that's right. And then we associate being, you know, responsible with not being fun or being, you know, someone that's shouldering some of the burden of society as not fun. I think you can still be awesome, still be fun. You can coach kids basketballs. You can, you know, run businesses. You can create environments. You can do stuff to provide for what the world actually needs. But yeah, so I think, you know, I think your adolescent phase there was short-lived, really, because you're only 26 now. And comparison, I mean, a lot of guys your age are still in that phase, you know, just, you know, addicted to the good life, you know, the lack of, I guess, responsibility and confront on what they're trying to do and no real big goals. I mean, you're still figuring it out, I'm sure.
Always.
But we all are, you know. But back to what I wanted to ask you about, you know, with you training with the Dolphins and training like at a pro level, what's it like? What's the culture of these clubs like? What do you run into like when you see kids with opportunity? I mean, I look at that and I think some of these guys are blessed with the genetics of, you know, and this lack of willingness to put in the work or this lack of effort or this, you know, recalcitrant attitude where they don't want to follow orders and don't want to actually, you know, how does that, I mean, have you seen much of that? Or does that ring any bells or trigger any thoughts?
100%. It's, especially in the younger generation, I think. And there's always a balance, right? There's always the kids who are young, who are 18, 19, who will take in every word you say. You say, do this before training, do this post-training, make sure you keep this in mind. They will do it to a T. But I think those people are getting rarer and rarer. And a lot of the time it is shifting more towards people who don't think they have to put in the work because they'll get given what they want. And they don't make the team and they get pissed about it and they say, oh, the coach is a fuckwit, the coach is this, that. Mm-hmm. Then you hear Tom Brady's story and he was the seventh string quarterback at his college when he got there. Mm-hmm. 7th string. So he's got 6 people above him. And how hard he had to work over 4 years to get that first spot. How many kids are doing that nowadays who are coming into a club where they're the 7th string or 4th string or 5th string and working to get to that first spot? I think a lot of them will go, fuck this place, the coach is a fuckwit, I'm going across to this club here. And they get that spot there rather than staying and building a strong culture in that environment. So I think we had that at Norse, definitely, and it was led by our coach Rowan Smith, who's over at Leeds right now, in the top, you know, English flight of rugby league there. It was started by him, and if you have that leader or that head coach who is driving the culture, it trickles down. That's the foundation. It has to be him, and then the management obviously have to, you know, buy into that as well. And you saw that trickle down. Because all of the guys who were starting each week, and even the guys who weren't, they were all committed, they all trained hard, they all showed up. Here's a funny one. At Redcliffe, when I was there, at the Redcliffe Dolphins, the amount of times I was asked by our athletes for a carrot. And a carrot's where, like, you know, maybe you're 30 minutes through a 40-minute run and, you know, you ask, oh, do you reckon we can just stop there? Like, oh, I'm pretty tired. And a carrot's given them that and saying, oh, yeah, you know what, we'll stop there. So the amount of times that I was asked at Redcliffe for a carrot, oh, can we just stop there? Oh, surely you give us, the end of the session off. Surely we cut the final block in the gym. Oh, do we have to run that far? Let's cut that last set. I can't remember once at Norse being asked that because they just wouldn't dare. It was you showed up, you did the work, and it wasn't, out of this world in terms of, volume or loading. It wasn't fucking crazy amounts of Ks on the legs, but they showed up, they did the work, and we won 2 premierships in a row. Norse hadn't won a premiership since 1998. So you had 99 all the way through 2020 with no premierships. And then we've built this culture over a few years. Everyone does the work. No one looks for the easy way out. And I'm not saying that's the reason why, but we won 2 premierships back to back. And that rarely happens.
Well, I mean, sport's such a great, if the coach says, give me 10, give 11. If the coach says, give me 8, give him 9 sort of thing, that sort of mentality, it breeds a confidence. It's like, there's a multitude of ways that you win a competition and, the mindset is a key part of that, right? So the confidence, it's just that knowing that there's no doubt, there's not even that shred of doubt back there that you didn't do the work. Yeah. Because part of you, when you put that ball up or you go for that touchdown or whatever the sport you're playing, whatever the goal of that sport is, when you try to achieve that, I feel like the universe goes, you know what? I'm giving this one to you. Yeah. When that ball's bouncing around or going to, spin out of the bucket, it drops, I think, when it's like, yeah, you deserve it. It almost like sways the universe. I really feel that. Now, obviously, can't prove it, but I can tell you, like, I can see it in my own sports observations and like, those times when you just did everything, even the meal that you ate before the game. You took responsibility to that level. You went and it's like when I have staff here that say, oh, I did everything possible, and I say, did you pray? They go, what the fuck? I said, well, did you pray? It's like, I'm not religious. I'm me neither. But you could have actually prayed as well, right? Yeah. Like you could have even, once you'd done all those things, you still could have got on your knees and asked the divine power to help. There's always more. Always. Right? And unless you did absolutely fucking everything, and you'll find if you did, you probably work out. If you actually did do everything. And these people like your Tom Brady's, your Michael Jordans and that, they are those guys that prayed. They are those guys that, there's no point that they were looking for anything and it's mental. It's not physical. Well. Yeah. Spiritual. Yeah, it's on a different level, right? 100%. Yeah. And
we had that as a culture. We had that.
You would have felt it through a club.
Definitely.
You would have felt that. And the thing is, a bit like your ultra running, your ultra marathon running, right? Like, you get in this flow, you get in this zone where it's like, I saw it with the 2016 Western Bulldogs, when they actually had this belief, and that belief is a hard thing. It's like whenever you're watching a sport game and you see that, oh shit, this team might actually do it. Yeah. And they start thinking, we can actually do this. Yeah. It's over. Yeah. And so I think, having, what a gift for you to have observed that on both sides. Yeah. Yeah.
And we didn't do poorly with the Dolphins, but we could have done a lot better, I think. Yeah. And a lot of that was seeing, blokes skipping reps in the gym or not pushing themselves hard enough on the run or not prepping properly, not sleeping well. All those little things, they all add up. But you can't measure it. You can't say we lost the game because that guy
didn't do 2 push-ups. Yeah,
didn't do 2 push-ups. Yeah, or we lost the game because that guy could have done 5 more kicks to practice his goal kicking, and he missed the game-winning kick. Yeah. So it's hard. It's hard knowing. Hey,
there's a fundamental, like, I don't know. There's like a fundamental deservedness or something that, like, when you're not doing those kicks, like when you're trying to do the least, when you're trying to do the bare minimum, I think the question that's got to be asked is, like, what I don't know, like, are you afraid of success or something? Or what would happen? What would be so bad if we actually won this? You know what I mean? Why don't you want to win it?
Do you think people are afraid of success?
I think so. I maybe not on a conscious level, but I think that we have these problems in our life that serve us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if we solve those problems, we would have to confront the next problem. So, like, we try to keep, for example, like, let's say that kid does do all his training. Let's say that kid does do all his push-ups. Let's say that kid does do everything, and he finds out he's not good enough. He still isn't good enough. At least now, in the back of his mind, he can blame his training. You know what I mean? I didn't really try that hard. I could have done better, but I didn't. So he mentally, he can actually go his whole life and not know he's not good enough.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he never really gave it 100%.
Never really tried.
I never really found out, you know? And what would be worse, to be slack or to be shit? You know what I mean?
Probably being shit.
Yeah. So he's sort of sitting there going, well, if I sabotage my training, if I sabotage my effort, I can always say that's why I failed.
Yeah.
But if I gave it 150% and I gave everything I had and still failed, I would know that I'm actually no good at this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes from the mechanisms of the human mind are kind of elaborate, you know, and crazy the way they link these weird
stories,
things together, you know, and you get that guy having kids and teaching his kids the similar, like kids are very observant, and those sort of methods of operation transfer through generations. And, you know, 10 years down the track or 10 generations down the track, these weird calculations of getting stuff done are still being sort of, you know, they have to, you know, until that person has a like crosses paths with an elite coach or a mindset development person, or someone can actually find that thing and kind of get them to observe it. Because that's the other thing. I bet if that person was sitting here and you just said that to them, they'd go, no, it's not.
That's a great point, actually. I'll come back to this quickly. It was a free event. I saw it online. It was a free event by John Templeton. Shout out to my boy. He had a
John Templeton,
he had a mindset and I guess a mindset and self-growth, motivational, a motivational seminar, essentially a workshop. And normally it was $2,000, but for a short period at that time it was free. And so I drove down the Gold Coast. I, you know, got a place there. I went to this workshop. This was when I was 21. This is I think it was 2019 maybe it would have been. And this was my first experience really tasting self-development or self-growth, because it's only really popped off the last few years, right? Like, could you imagine 10 years ago people listening to a podcast like Huberman Lab and listening about dopamine and how dopamine works and how cortisol works and how do we have ice baths to regulate our nervous system and to improve our immune health? People weren't doing that 10 years ago.
Well, I think, not to make you wrong here, but I think it was there. It just wasn't available.
Yeah.
Like, I look at that movie with about Ray Kroc, the guy that the founder, the McDonald's guy. Have you seen that?
No, not yet.
Well, he's a traveling salesman, but he goes around and he gets to his next, like when he's staying in a hotel, he puts on records, you know, on vinyl of these sales coaches. Like, I guess it's kind of like motivational mindset stuff.
Yeah.
So in that regards, I think there's always been this understanding, but it was only really available to those, well, it was only there for those who availed themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, Tony Robbins has been around for how long? 30
Well,
years.
mate, Megamind and all this, what was that guy's name? But yeah, we used to see Tony Robbins infomercials on TV, but it was expensive and it wasn't in a format that you could easily digest, you know, like you couldn't just listen. Yeah, obviously without belaboring this point, it just wasn't as easily available.
No.
And that's what's so great about social media and technology is, like, I'm interested in, you know, drift cars. I'm interested in drift racing. Well, I was interested in them when I was 10. I just didn't even know they existed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just didn't know that they even were a thing.
Yeah.
Of course I was interested if I knew how to actually access it, but you were kind of only able to be interested in that suite of things that were in front of you. And
100%.
so, and that's what I love about podcasting, and I love about the internet, the social media and all that, is like everyone now can actually, there's no real excuse.
No excuse.
Is, you know, and that's kind of that kind of, in a way it sucks, because it's nice to have the excuse.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about the other day, like, you know, George Lucas had less than what I've got in my iPhone, and he made Star Wars.
Wow.
Fuck, now why aren't I making a Star Wars?
Yeah.
What's my, you know? So you kind of go, oh shit. Like, so, but the point I was trying to make is that we now have access. Like, all you've got to do is type in, I want to be better, you know, proven techniques for this. Yeah. I'm interested in this. I'm interested in that. And, you know, you can make those steps forward. And so back to your Jonathan Templeton story. So you've gone down to the Gold Coast to see this guy.
Yeah. And it was awesome. Like a 2-day workshop. It was pretty much full time. So it was 8 hours each day. And it was just intense self-growth, self-development stuff. Even at some point we're lying down the ground and he's playing these binaural beats and he's speaking to you in this soft voice and he's saying, think about your childhood, think about your family. And then everyone just starts crying. Like he went really deep into making you think about your trauma, whatever that word means. I don't know what that word means really. No one does, but he went really deep into that area, but also he went into finance, building a business, entrepreneurship, you know, creativity, health, foods you can eat to be healthier. It was the whole thing. Think about all the self-help books you've ever read distilled into a 2-day workshop, which was really cool.
Bloody yes.
And that was my first taste of it.
Yeah.
And then I left that and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm working at a cafe. And again, there was, you know, just the season that I was in right then. But
Sure.
I'm not doing much. I got to start using this shit, man. And that's when I started, you know, looking for placements and opportunities and internships. And that's where I really started to improve. Started reading more books. The first book that I read that was self-help type in that genre was Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. And
Why We Sleep
by Matthew Walker. And it was a good book. It just made me sleep more.
Right.
And I was like, holy shit. Just by reading this one book, you know, 300 pages, I'm now going from sleeping 4 hours a night to 7 hours a night. I feel better. My emotions are better. I feel stronger, healthier, fitter, all from reading 300 pages. So 10 pages a day, 30 days. So it's amazing, like the power of information.
And I think that what you're hitting on there is like, you know, education is just, you know, it always comes back to making sure that everyone's got access to education and an environment to apply it, right? Because we have this, I firmly believe that everyone wants to improve. Everyone wants to improve. And if people are sitting in front of you and they don't want to improve, they genuinely think that something's going to hurt them if they improve.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's that's the only reason someone wouldn't improve, or that the journey to improving is so difficult,
so painful
that they are not strong enough to improve.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's funny how these things can turn the lights on in people. You know what I mean? But people won't then take that, like they'll see themselves improve as a runner, for example, but won't apply that same discipline and monitoring and measurement to, say, a relationship or their income or their weight or their, you know, whatever.
So true, hey?
You know, like if you
it's harder to measure.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, weight's not.
Well,
weight's
I think
easy to measure, but
you know, it's not impossible though.
No.
Like what with sleep you can measure pretty easily, and there's plenty of apps that do that.
Relationships.
You can measure your relationships, right? You can just sort of say, well, how often are we making love? How many fights are we having? How are we feeling? How am I feeling? You know, just make up an arbitrary scale on a scale of 1 to 10. How much do I love my wife? You know, 6, 8, 9, 10, 0. You know, and just track it. You know, measure how much time you spend together. Now, obviously, as you being the level you're at with your running, you don't watch those stats every single time, and you probably look at your general stats like over the course of the week I had to run X Ks and I run it.
Yeah.
You're not looking to that level of detail. And when things
Every
are going
single day.
well, like with your marriage, for example, you wouldn't be needing to measure them, because people would even probably say, well, that's insane. Well, not as insane as getting a divorce and having your whole world collapse and your kids being shared between, I mean.
Losing half your
I'd much
income,
rather
half
try
your-
and make it work, you know, and if it meant measuring a few things or making a bit of an effort, or like a lot of people aren't aware that you can do these, you can try things for everything. You can try to improve conditions in everything.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter what it is. If you actually take a professional approach to it,
Yeah.
you know.
Because they've been conditioned to not do that, because that's what 99% of people do. The majority of people don't do that. And I don't do it, to be fair, like say with a relationship. But I'm sure you and I are more aware of it and we're more conscious of it.
It also depends on how bad you want to save it or how bad you want it.
Yeah.
You know? Now, that's not to say that like everyone who's had a divorce didn't absolutely deserve to get a divorce or absolutely this or that. But it goes back to what I was saying before. They will tell you that they tried everything. And I'll ask them if they prayed. Because they didn't, you know what I mean? And that's fair enough, you know, but like.
There's so much to add to it too, though. Like, what about, did you stay in shape? Did you keep healthy? Did you make sure that you had good energy levels? Because you imagine, do you want to be with someone for 20 years who's just fucking low energy throughout that entire period of time? Fuck no. No chance. You don't want that mate of yours who you see every time. You know, hey, how you going, bro? Good to see ya. Oh, yeah, I'm all right, you know. Just drains you.
Absolutely. And there's definitely relationships that like run their course, and there's definitely relationships that need to be ended. But my point is more around like when people, I guess people don't take, I find people don't take that, in fact, I would say people would even say I'm insane half the time when I talk about this stuff, because taking a professional approach towards something or a professional is probably maybe the right word, but a scientific almost approach to managing your personal problems or your life actually, you know, can really get some, you know, if it works for sleep, if it works for health, if it works for fitness, if it works for this and that, and if it's important to you, you know, try it. You throw something at it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas what most people will do is, you know, handle things the way everyone handles things, you know, piss and moan to their girlfriends and boyfriends, and, you know, talk to their mates about how much their wife's giving them the shit, or their girlfriends, they're annoying them because they're this and that.
Which gets you nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Or they, you know, they don't improve their skill set on communication, for example, like you were saying about having a partner that's low energy for 20 years. Well, I mean, on the second week of low energy, there really should have been a conversation about, hey, like this isn't going to work if we keep this, you know, or it wouldn't even be at that level, right? Because when you steer when you steer your car down the highway, you just make minor adjustments, don't you?
Yeah.
You don't. If it's running smooth, you just kind of go, okay,
jam it.
Yeah, you don't just hang a left, you know. You sort of just keep it in line, and that's things like, hey, you know, like, it's been a while since we actually were intimate. It's been a while since we went and had a movie night. It's been a while since we, you know, whatever has things, you know, like. It's been a while. So that's your little just maneuvers on the steering wheel to keep that relationship running smoothly.
Yeah.
If you're actually going in saying, you know, you've been a lazy slob for the last 20 years and I hate you, well, you've probably ended up way off course.
Way off course, yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it's what you were saying too. It's like people, I think, are afraid of putting in effort because of what it entails. Like it requires effort, requires like energy, dedication, etc. And so it's almost easier, like you were saying, to just not put in the effort. And then, you know, you get mad at them because they're not putting the effort as well. And it goes back and forth. And then all of a sudden you're, you know, divorced rather than putting in the effort initially. And it's awkward initially as well. Like say with a relationship, it's awkward being like, I want our sex life to improve. But I think it's much worse to just not work on it at all. You know?
And honestly, like I think that if it does get Yeah, look, man, there's going to be people listening to this and go, these guys know fucking nothing about what it's really like, because you haven't been married. I've been married and my marriage hasn't had any major issues. And so people would say, oh, you guys are just not really fucking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is fair enough.
They can sign out right now.
Yeah, but they can come in and like let us know, but I think that the problem is also when you get, I think one of the biggest problems if the marriages and relationships that would suck and would really, I would be struggling to work out a game plan for it is actually when you get a situation where ultimately two people are just different, right? And so they've come together in a situation where that season that you were talking about, like during that season, they were on the same page. Like you might have, just think about the boys that you used to hang out with, right? Like, or, and that's not judgment on them. Who knows what they've done with their lives, but the people that you've come into contact with in your life and you didn't know that there was another you out there. Do you know what I mean? So you're in this zone, you're in this season, you're working towards this sort of lifestyle, and then suddenly you go to a John Templeton concert. Was it John Templeton?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Then it probably wasn't a concert. But but you go to the.
There was singing.
You go to you go to you get awoken basically. This person in you gets sort of stirred, and you realize that
there's more.
I actually can do this, and unfortunately, like you're with someone who's not on that same path, on that same, doesn't feel that that's, and there's people who don't want that. There's people who want to live a different sort of life, and that's fine. But if you're married or in a relationship with someone who doesn't actually have that ambition to do that, or maybe you don't have the ambition to do what they want to do. Maybe they want to go be an ultra runner and climb Mount Everest, and you're just like, fuck that. What for?
Yeah.
I really don't see the point in that.
Nah.
So if you find yourself in that spot, it's going to be tough.
Fuck yeah.
It's going to be real tough.
100%.
Yeah. What else we got, man? I don't know.
What else do you want to cover?
I don't know. What else is on?
What's your burning question?
I don't have a burning question. I don't know. I think there's no burning question. Yeah. What's on going forward? What's the plan? So when's this next ultra marathon? When's this like your next event?
Going to run 165 Ks at the end of the year. So August, September ideally will be it. And then I want to run a 30-hour backyard ultra or a last man standing ultra. So how it works is you got a 6.7K loop, which you do every hour on the hour. So you run the loop, say in 40 minutes.
Chill.
You have 20 minutes rest, and then you go again. And you just repeat it as many times as you can.
Where's this?
I haven't chosen yet.
Right.
So
okay.
I know that I'm doing those two
What's
this
it called?
year.
So talk me through this event again. So it's called
a backyard ultra or a last man standing ultra.
Right.
And as I said, big loop, you run around it, you have a certain amount of time to rest, or you don't, depending how slow you are, and you just keep doing it until you can't do it anymore.
And so 6.7K
per loop, yeah.
Why is that a significant distance? Is that a mile or something?
4 miles.
Oh, right.
4 miles.
Right, okay. It's 4 miles, right.
Yeah.
So 4 mile loop every hour for 30 hours.
That'd be my goal, but
people can go, you just go to whenever, right.
As long as you want.
So
30 hours would be 200 Ks.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So, because in my mind, I see myself, most of them start at midnight, I think. I see myself going from midnight through to 6 a.m. sunrise and seeing the sunrise the next day. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, wow.
You imagine like you go through the night and you're in the Hurt Locker, you've done 160 Ks, and then you're like, just get me to sunrise. Just get it sunrise. And so hopefully, assuming it starts at midnight.
Would you just walk the first, like would you walk it at the start?
No,
you have to run that?
You run it.
Yeah.
Because the idea is you run it so that you have the rest.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to, if you're doing like an every minute on the minute, you know what an email is?
Yeah. You don't
want to finish in 59 seconds and go straight away.
Right. You want to chill.
You want to finish in a decent time and then have a chance to recover.
Right.
And I think as well, like I've got a lot of good friends in the community, and obviously my girlfriend as well, and family who will support me. So having them there to, rub my calves and, give me little massages, maybe a little head scratch, I think it'd be really nice.
I was going to ask about the relationship thing. Like how does this affect your relationships? Like is there room, or does it get in the way trying to train for something like this? Or is it about having an understanding partner, or
having an understanding partner for sure?
Yeah.
And just keeping them in the loop as well. Like keeping them aware of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying that I'm, running the most out of anyone in Brisbane. There's people who run, tenfold more Ks than I do, but it does get pretty intense towards like the pointy end of the preparation. Say with Guzzler, for example, my first ultra, was doing probably 15 hours of running a week, 16 hours of running. Which would have been, maybe a 12K on Tuesday, a 20K on Thursday, a 17K on Saturday, and then a 55K on Sunday. And it's a 55K run. Like you're doing 6 hours. You aren't sleeping in and having
massive.
Having morning sex in bed and, relaxing and having cuddles and snoozing. You're waking up at 4 a.m., going out till 10 a.m., then you're eating and recovering, and you aren't ready to do anything until midday pretty much. So I can imagine that was the preparation for a 100K race. Now this year is going to be 165K, so the preparation has to go up. You can't just do the same preparation.
So your goal is to run is that the 100 miler?
100 miler, yeah.
Which is the 165K.
Yeah.
That's so extreme, man.
It's extreme.
What do you reckon? Like, because I was looking at this before I knew I was going to interview you. What do you think the mental health, like if you were to get 100 ultra marathoners together, what do you think that like the mental health situation is with these guys? Like just anecdotally,
Yeah.
like because I'm not saying you've got mental health issues, and I'm not trying to judge anyone, but I mean, it just seems fucking full on.
Seems extreme.
Yeah. And like, is there an element of, have you come across that? Are there people that are doing, like you seem like you're doing it for the right reasons, honestly. And I can see it's a challenge, and you've already, I think mentally, I feel like you've put a summit on this, as in like, I'm going to get there and I want to try it and I want to achieve this level. And I feel like you've put a summit on this whole adventure.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. We'll see. Yeah.
Like as in, I'll be happy if I get there.
Yeah.
Is what I think.
Yeah.
Is how I feel you sound.
I think so.
But I just think like, is there people that just have some sort of
self-hatred,
loathing or something that just, I don't know. Just anecdotally, have you ever come across that? Or
I think there's less in ultra running.
Right, okay.
I think there's less because
that could be the case too. Maybe it's less. It's more personal, and it's less about showiness or less about
I think so. When you think about it too, like if someone goes and runs a marathon and they actually don't find it too hard.
What's next?
The next thing is an ultra.
Yeah.
It's 50K. That's an ultra marathon.
Yeah.
And then it's 75, 100, 165, etc.
So an ultra marathon is just a 50K. Is that the?
No, it's anything beyond a marathon.
Right. Anything beyond a marathon. Okay.
You wouldn't
do 43.
Yeah, 43. Ultra marathon.
Yeah. Okay, I get you. I thought an ultra was 100. Yeah.
No, anything beyond 42.2 Ks.
Okay.
So
you can do a 50 or 100 or a 75. Okay. Yeah.
And how I describe it is I don't think that doing a slightly slower 100 Ks and prepping well for it is any harder than doing a really fast marathon with minimal preparation or trying to blow yourself up.
Do you knock over some marathons in the process, like as part of your training?
Yeah.
Is it nice to just go because while you got them in the tank,
for sure.
bloody oath,
100%,
rack them up.
I was probably doing a marathon every weekend for maybe 10 weekends in a row during the first kind of prep. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
You have to get it done. You have to, because if you can't run a marathon, you can't run 100 Ks.
The first one you finished was the Guzzler, right? The 100K.
Yeah, you were there for that.
Yeah. What was that like? Like, what was that? Talk us through just like, I know we sort of talked about you crashing and that. Like, give us the full 16-hour version of it. Like starting off, who you met, you know?
Yeah. It was an awesome day. Like, I was really positive about it, and I'd done all the preparations well. The first 30 Ks I ran pretty much solo. I ran with a guy named Sam for a little bit, but it was mainly solo. And then at that 30 K mark, there was these two blokes, Hayden and Matt. Good dudes, really good dudes. I realised that they were kind of like floating with me. They were like behind me, then in front of me, then behind me, then in front of me. And we just essentially assimilated into one group of three. And I ran with those guys there from 30 Ks through to 90 Ks.
Wow.
And
that's
so,
a long fucking team up.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, if you saw someone, you know, once a month for an hour for a year, you aren't seeing them for as long as I was with these guys for. You know, I'm with these guys from 30 Ks to 90 Ks, which is probably, what would that be, like 10 hours worth.
Wow.
But 10 hours of just non-stop chatting.
Yeah,
so we're talking, we're running, we're working things out, we're jumping over tree logs. You know, one of them fell over and we're getting him up, and whatever else happens, and I start fucking crying, and you go through so much together.
Can we get some of that? I'll stick some of that footage in this. Yeah, I'd like to show people.
The one where I'm like,
well, what happened there?
So what actually happened was we got to the 88K checkpoint or 84K checkpoint, and I was feeling okay, but then you sit down, you sit around this little campfire, and you know you're having your hot noodles, and you know you're feeling cozy, and what happens is your body just goes, no, are we done now? Are we finished?
Yeah,
and you're like, no, we're not done. And so when you get back up, your body has just partly shut down, I think, and that next 6 Ks from 84 to 90 just broke me, and. Not broke me as in I never thought that I wouldn't finish. I knew that I would finish even if I walked the whole way. I also tore my knee from that 84 to 90K checkpoint.
You tore it?
Well, I tore a muscle in the back of the knee called the popliteus, which no one knows, but it locks and unlocks the knee. So it allows the knee joint to move in the same way that this thing does effectively. And then I was hobbling on that, hit the 90K mark, and I said to the boys, I was like, boys, you guys are killing it. You have to keep going. And they were like, nah, brother, we're not leaving you. We're not leaving you. And then 2 minutes later, I'm like, boys, you got to go. And they were like, oh, okay. Right. So they ran off. And then I think it was just going from being with people the whole time. It's like being in a relationship. Like, you have support the whole way, and you're chatting, going back and forth. And then all of a sudden they run off, and I'm by myself in the dark, in the middle of, like, you know, West Brisbane, in the rainforest, not the rainforest, in the forest, by myself. And I was listening to a psychologist speak about the reason why ultra endurance runners go through these breakdowns and these emotional kind of hurdles. And what she was basically saying was, when you're fresh, energized, healthy, ecstatic, etc., you have a wall up which stops your negative emotions from coming forward. So say you go to work on a Wednesday morning, you don't want to start crying in front of everyone. You don't want to break down with emotions, because you know obviously it's a bad look. So you have an ability to keep that wall up. But when you get fatigued and you run at that point for 14 hours straight, that wall just slowly starts coming down because your body's burning all its energy. So the wall starts coming down. And then I think when I was with them, it was awesome. But then they left me and I'm alone again. And it wasn't like, I wasn't battling demons. I wasn't, like, I fucking hate myself. I don't want to be here. It was just a lot of emotions, positive, negative, neutral, all combined. And then I just thought, you know what, have a little cry, got it out, got the emotions out.
Oh, we've hit a massive wall, 90 Ks deep. Fucking just trying to walk now and just cruise the downhill if I can. It's all part of the course. We're about 14 hours in now, 14 and a half hours. So, it's like, yeah, we just keep rolling.
I think I was just probably proud of myself was one thing, like proud of myself for like getting to that point in the first place, happy at the preparation I'd done and whatnot. But I think it's a lot. I can't even pinpoint. I couldn't even tell you the reason why I was crying. I just felt that I needed to have a release.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a really great way to describe it, because the other thing is when you're running with people, your attention is outside your head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there are those negative thoughts and that, but you're not putting any of your own attention on it.
No.
You're focusing, your attention is focused outwards.
Yeah.
And having someone to converse with, like your attention's outwards. And then once those people are no longer there, and it just goes to show also the power of people and the power of loneliness.
Yeah.
Because I've been in a similar situation where I got sort of lost in a trail run, nothing on your level, just briefly. And I was not a good person to, like I was an unsupportive person to myself.
Yeah.
So like if I was in a situation like that with someone else, I feel like I'd be supportive to that person and that person would be supportive to me.
Yeah.
But if it's just me talking to me, it was like we shat ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, me and myself just kind of weren't really positive.
Yeah.
And I found that quite remarkable that my first thoughts went to like, where the fuck are we? What are we going to do? How are we going to get out? Like it was just this kind of, you know, it wasn't like how I would be if I was with someone else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think maybe what you went through there is that whole, we're just with ourselves now. And I think what you do is you kind of go through a little bit of a dip.
Yeah.
And you find that get yourself together person comes out eventually. And it's just a matter of time. I think everyone's got it in them.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like I just went, oh shit, what are we going to do? Da, da, da. And then that part of me that just says, no, we're calm the fuck down. And I think that's really good practice as well to actually go through this in life, because if you ever find, you know, that's how you build some strength.
Yeah.
You know, you build strength by putting yourself into these situations safely, having to deal with some shit. And that's great for kids, you know, like putting them just outside that comfort zone, just outside, and they get stronger and stronger. And you're way outside your comfort zone, pitch black, 90K into a run. I guess that night I was freezing. I'm not sure how you were going for temp, whether you were starting to cool down or whether what was it like physically, the temperature that night? Because I was cold.
I got colder because I was walking, because I tore that muscle, as I said, in my knee. And so from 90Ks to 105.9. I don't know why they had the 5.9. Fuckwits. I was walking most of that. That was a trundle. I was trundling along, and then I hit the 99K mark. My headlamp died, so I had to hold one pole while I had my iPhone in the other hand, and I'm walking like that. And then at the 100K mark, what they decided to do is they decided to put the steepest climb in the entire race. So you have to walk up this track called Kokoda, which is about 125 meters of vertical elevation in 300 meters. So it's a ridiculous grade. And I'm walking up the hill with a phone in my left hand, one pole in the right hand, torn knee in my left side. And then I got to within 20, 30 meters of the top, and I saw this light shining down from the top, and I was like, oh, you know, it must be a volunteer, like one of the volunteers who helps out on race day. But then I got there and I got a bit closer, and I'm like, oh fuck, that's the boys. So the boys had like worked out where I was on GPS, had driven to where I was on the track, which wasn't like one of the aid stations or one of the areas you could get to easily, and they'd walked down onto the trail to find me.
Wow. These are the guys that left you. they've kind of
No. This is my mates.
Oh, your
My
mates.
mates who were there supporting me on race day. And so that was a good boost.
Wow.
And then they walked with me for a bit.
Yeah.
And then I got to about 103 Ks, so about 3 Ks off the end. And I was like, fuck this. I'm not going to walk the end of this race. I'm not going to like hobble into across the line. And it's amazing how the next day, if you had have asked me to walk normally, I couldn't have done it. I physically couldn't do it. I was on crutches. I had a torn popliteus. My body was shitting itself. But because I didn't want to finish by walking, I ran that last 3 Ks nonstop. Just all the way through. Not at a fast pace, but like a 6:20,
Great, man.
6:30 per kilometre pace. So that was cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what was it like when you got into the...
Pretty cool. It was a good feeling. I'm getting goosebumps right now. Great feeling. Great
Yeah,
feeling.
well, I'll put the footage in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it lasted a while as well.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I think those cheap dopamine hits you get, they don't last very long.
No.
But these things that you've worked hard for
absolutely.
and you've trained hard for,
Yeah.
and you have people there like supporting you, I think they last a lot longer.
Absolutely.
And I've looked back on those videos and, you know, rewatched them
Absolutely.
over and over, and it's pretty cool.
That's a really good point, actually. Like even when you get the dopamine hit or those highs from watching a great movie or something that's not considered gluttonous, you know, like, you know, I can recall the first time I saw a movie or something like that and go, gee, that was a good time, or, you know, it was good, but it doesn't, like, you know, when I just thinking about the time I climbed up the Acropolis with my mum in Greece, and she was 78, I think, at the time, 78 years old, and we you know, it is middle of summer in Greece, and we got sort of part way up, and then she just thought, she's like, no, I can't do this. Like, this is just, you know, and it's like, we can just take all day. We don't have to get there. We don't have to, there's no time on this. Let's just relax. And we sat down, we had a bottle of water with us. We just chilled, took another couple of 100 meters, and eventually she got there. This is not some ultra climb by any stretch, but for an old lady who's, you know, it's probably 36 degrees or something. It was a big deal, but I can think about that, and I can think about standing on that with my mum up there and just how great that was. And you're right, you do get a different, when it is something like that, the dopamine hit is something that you can recall and revisit and re-enjoy.
And feel, hey?
Yeah.
You can feel it.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good observation. I never really considered that, because I know that like the cheap laughs and stuff you get off your scrolling through memes and that, you can't like...
If there were enough, then you would watch the reel and you go, that's a great reel, and turn your phone off.
Yeah.
But you don't. You go, what's the next reel? Oh, that one was shit. I want a good one again.
Exactly, yeah. Well, anyway, man, I think we'll call it, you know. It was really great. Really enjoyed that chat, and yeah. We'll follow you and support you, mate, and hopefully we can do another chat maybe even after you've done your next one, and just recall like what's
changed,
next, you know, and what changed and how your training was, and it's the end of this year, isn't it, that you were planning to do this?
Yeah, middle end of this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, if it's not too far, I'll be there.
Love it, man.
Good on you, man.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks, brother.
See you, bro.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome.